So I said I would do this for anybody that clicks through on any of my videos and they just kind of want to know about my professional background, the kind of things that I want to talk about or I do talk about, and why I got into my professional background and why I wanted to do this channel as well. So doing this video probably makes things so much easier. So as for my professional background, I originally studied law and criminology. I then went on to work in a related field, and I then went back to do my LLB in Scots law, which for people that don't understand what that acronym means, it basically means I did my law degree, but one that I can actually practice and become a lawyer with. And in case you can't tell by my accent, I am referring to Scots law. Currently, I'm in the middle of doing my diploma to practice, which every jurisdiction tends to have different interpretations of what they mean. I think Scots law probably is in relation to the bar in the United States, and the English version is quite similar to ours. But yeah, a lot of my professional background does relate to criminal law, but I have a really keen interest in mental health law. Maybe because it is just something that I personally am a little bit interested in, just a little bit. It's not something I think it's spoken about a lot, hence why I started this channel. I would like to incorporate talking about mental health law and hopefully get other people to actually think about where other aspects of law do tie in with that. I talk a lot about criminological theory, I talk a lot about legal theory, but again, mental health law is something that I care very, very deeply about, and hopefully I can incorporate that with other people. However, you will still see traditional types of true crime content. I've had to say that like about 5 times. It's been a very long day. I actually really like Danielle Kirsty's stuff. So that kind of gave me a little bit of inspiration to do this because I believe she actually does have a degree in criminology as well. So I do watch content that is true crime. And I did think, well, if I can incorporate things that I care about, criminological theory, legal theory, and mental health law. So if I can make a channel about that, talking about things that I enjoy, maybe other people would actually like that as well. So it's more of a side hobby and more of an interest. Maybe I will actually stop boring people in my real life talking about this stuff. So yeah. I tried recording this several ways over as to how I got into the professional area that I did and why I have the passions that I do within it. So I'll put it to you this way. My dad was one of the sweetest, gentlest, kindest people that you could ever hope to meet. He had really cringy taste in music. He was also really funny. He was quite old fashioned, he was quite gentlemanly, never wanted to swear in front of women. He would let me stay up watching old horror movies that no one would actually allow me to watch. He got me into being obsessed with the Twilight Zone as a kid, like the old black and white series. He never ever shouted at me as a kid. Like, some of my happiest memories when I was a kid are with my dad. He did genuinely have cringe taste in music though, but he was just a really genuinely nice guy, and he was just, he had a heart of gold, and I never met anybody that disliked my dad. So when I've said that to you, I've probably given you a very, very certain view of my dad, that you've built up this idea of him. And my dad was also schizophrenic. And now that I've told you that, you may have developed a completely different view of him. And when I was growing up, I only ever knew my dad as having schizophrenia. He had been diagnosed with it before I was born. So this was just something that I grew up with. And I grew up with horrific headlines. I grew up with a lot of stigma around it. And I grew up in the 90s, so the headlines I grew up with were sometimes quite traumatizing for a kid to see when you know that your dad has this condition and you know how people talk about things like schizophrenia, and you were encouraged to be ashamed of it. So when I got into a point in my life when I was deciding what do I actually want to do with my career, I originally kind of wanted to get into mental health nursing. I wanted to do something maybe with psychiatry. And then I was told that I would have to do general nursing. And I have a really bad medical phobia. Like anything to do with needles, blood, bodily fluid is not happening with me. But I was always quite interested in things to do with law. I really like reading, which really helps in law. I really like reading. I really like anything to do with research. I always was a bookworm. And I was quite fascinated by things to do with crime, which is a bit of a stereotype. I also realised from growing up with my dad that people with mental health issues often do get treated badly by several layers of authorities. They do sometimes feel let down by healthcare systems that don't always sometimes treat them with respect. And sometimes when they pass through the criminal justice system, they often feel like they're not being treated with respect. Now, my dad never got into problems with the law. My dad was relatively quite boring in a lot of ways, but I do know of people that have had problems where they've ended up homeless, they've gone off medication, and they've ended up in prison and things like that. Like they've had horrific experiences, and they have learned to be quite mistrustful of a lot of organisations, of the police, of doctors, and things like that. And I wanted to help people that were in these types of situations, probably because I did have quite a unique experience growing up. People tend to think of my childhood when I say that I grew up with a schizophrenic dad, and they think, oh, you must have had such a bad childhood with that. And my view is that I had a very unique experience growing up. I never felt like the things I experienced were bad. It gave me a lot of compassion in a lot of ways. So yeah. But back to the things that you will see on this channel. As I said, you will see your traditional types of true crime type things. I do realise that people don't always sometimes want to hear about legal theory and criminology and academic type things. And I watch true crime stuff myself. That's twice I managed to say that without stumbling over it and not having to edit it out. That's good. So you will see traditional true crime content on this channel. I also enjoy it as well. You will see me using usually quite infamous or notorious cases to explain criminological or legal theories. And a big reason for that is that some people maybe actually be looking at channels like these because they are thinking about possibly pursuing careers in these fields. And the world is changing now. People have mobile phones in their hands constantly, and this might be how people are actually researching potential careers. And for me, I think if you can actually sit there and explain to people realistically the types of things that they may actually be studying or the types of things that they may be researching, I don't see what the harm is in trying to explain to people and giving them a bit of a head start and saying these are the types of things that you are going to be talking about if you ultimately go to university to look these things up. Please do not use this as academic study. These are just my opinions and my thoughts. I'm simply just saying if you want to look at my videos and think about this, that's completely on you. Please do not cite me. Please don't get yourself into trouble at university. Please just enjoy this as my opinion and my opinion alone. Don't get yourself into bother at university. Just don't. And yes, if you are in your 30s or older and you're watching this from the United Kingdom and you've caught on the name of my channel that's not my actual name, I did call it that because of my accent. I did think it was funny. No, I'm not going to say the channel name. No, I'm not going to say that. So